I was introduced to bridge actually by my brother, who was a world-class player and teacher when I was in high school. I went to visit him in New York for a summer. Went to a couple of lessons, and somehow I've always had an aptitude for games and I had no aptitude for things I don't like. And I picked it up pretty quickly, watching him give lessons, and I actually played a very tough local duplicate game at his country club for my first play, and I actually won, and I was hooked ever since. What makes bridge really appealing is there are just so many variables. It's the human element, it's the math element. I think bridge is the most complex game in the world. You don't have to be great at the game to really enjoy it. And it's a lot like a game of backgammon where anyone can beat anyone at a certain moment is another big appeal to the game. It's when I was first playing bridge. I was a young, hot-headed kid like we all were, and what we call steaming when you have a bad result. We tried to get it back on the next hand, and some of the great players of the game. I was fortunate enough to be playing in Dallas, Texas, which is really the hotbed of bridge at the time. And there's one of the best pairs of all time, Bob Hammond and Bobby Wolf. And I watched them, no matter how big a disaster they had, if they got doubled, went down 5 tricks, you couldn't tell by either of their faces that they had an accident. They just went on to the next hand. Bridge is really a game of losing. In the big events, there's 120 teams, 130 teams, only one can win. So it's not like baseball where if you get a hit 3 out of every 10 at bats, you're in the Hall of Fame. Here, bridge is more of a game of losing. My best friend of all time, who was my first great bridge partner, who went into the Hall of Fame last year. I was fortunate enough to be able to introduce him into the Hall of Fame, Mark Lair. When I was a young traveling, hoping to make it as a bridge pro, I actually met him driving through Oklahoma, and he and his lovely wife invited me to come spend the night with them. And about a month later, I left, and we became lifelong friends, and we formed a bridge partnership. I've never had one like it since. We went to a sectional in Wichita Falls, Texas, and we were playing one of our first pair games together. And our opponents had bid and raised diamonds, and they had bid and raised hearts, and we had preempted in clubs. The opponents actually bid to 6 hearts, and I had both of their aces, so I doubled. Until saying they couldn't make it, and I was going to penalize them. And Mark ran the 7 of the suit that we had preempted in, and we went down a very large number instead of going plus. And instead of getting an absolute top on the board, we got an absolute 0. Being a young, well-adjusted, even-tempered guy, I reacted by getting up, leaving the table, going outside and sitting on the diving board at the swimming pool, and refused to come back and play. So the chief director, who was a good friend of both of us, came out and he begged me to come back in and play. So after about 10 minutes, I came back in, sat down and played, and we went on to win the event. I knew early I wasn't a 9-to-5 type human being, and I played some minor league baseball when I was young and had some knee problems, and I played some bridge, and people started offering me money to play bridge, and I thought this was the most wonderful thing. So when I got out of the Air Force, I decided to try my luck on the bridge circuit. Got in a car, drove, and my first couple of years were what I call my Motel 6 years, where I barely had enough money for a hotel room, and often 3 or 4 of us would share a room and get together enough money to get to the next tournament, and then things started turning around a little bit, and I was offered more and more money, and it was something I never dreamt possible. Could have never seen the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow that I have now. I've been very, very lucky. Well, I'd really like to be remembered as someone who's nice and kind to the opponents, and I try to go out of my way to answer a lot of bridge questions, because a lot of people come up to me and want to know how to bid hands or defend hands, and I want to be remembered as a great partner. I try to, I feel it's my forte playing with, make my living playing with a lot of weaker players and making them comfortable and bringing out the best in their game.